Can you guys hear me? I don't see any comments on the screen. I see that 2 people are watching. One of those is me. Hey, Jill, can you hear me, sweetie? My computer's acting all kinds of crazy. I don't know what's going on. Okay, audio's good. What in the heck? So confused. It's a picture of the fan, but it says experiencing Japan's most intense roller coaster, which is not the fan. It's not the fan. Come on, StreamYard, get it together.
You are unmuted.
They're unmuted. Get it together, StreamYard. She's humming. Oh my God, y'all. She's humming. I know, right, Jill? Today has been one heck of a day. Hey, Terry. Okay, let's see. I'm going to turn off my camera. I don't know if it's StreamYard or my computer or what, but it's just technology does not like me today.
All right, the jury is coming over. I just wanted to tell you what I was able to do during the lunch break.
My dogs
So
are going to bark because I'm still eating lunch.
Mr. Brennan, you argued for 4 points of admission regarding this witness. I'll allow in one and two. I've had a chance to look at 4. I think I already told you I've now looked at the 4th one. The case during cross-examination, if the door is open and you think you can get into it after a redirect, please come to sidebar. All right, and also I had a chance to look at the exhibit guide, what came into evidence from Dr. Welcher and Ms. Little, contrary to what did not come into evidence, it's a blank page. So that PowerPoint did not come in.
Hey, Judy. Okay, when it crashed and I went hit pause, I hit the bar. So we're going to have to, I fixed it, but we're back a little bit. Gosh, it's not Monday, but it feels like Monday. And it still says experience Japan's most uncomfortable roller coaster, whatever the fudge that was. But that's not what it is. What is with my tech today? It's worse than usual, y'all. I don't know what's happening. Thank you, Just Because, for suggesting 2 o'clock. Because I got to call 2 doctors. I had to call one about a medication, the other about an appointment. And my tech is being wonky. Okay, we're going to do this thing, and we're going to get finished today. We might not finish at 4, but we're going to get finished with this today. I promise y'all.
Or I think I already told you I would not allow in 3 because I've already considered it. I've now the 4th one. The case. I'm not going to let you get into that during question. But a chance to look at the actual exhibit regarding what came into evidence from Dr. Welcher and Ms. Little, contrary to what you said and what Mr. Alessi was nodding to. So that PowerPoint did not come in. I had a chance to look at Dr. Rentschler's PowerPoint, and at least for now, maybe you can persuade me otherwise, any text that has hearsay on it that you say will help assist the jury, what I want to say is I think we have to give the jury some credit here, okay? They have been listening to this case intently for weeks. I don't find that anything that you've recommended here comes in to assist the jury is necessary to assist the jury. So before Dr. Rentschler testifies, those slides that were objected to that have text are out.
Can I have a moment just to examine Dr. Welcher PowerPoint?
No, not right now. You can look at it, yes. You can look at it while we're bringing the jury in.
Okay, because we have 4 copies of the PowerPoint, and I know that I'd like to be able to. It's 137 in the report. So
Mr. Alessi, please.
Woman, do you even care?
136, 137, and
I'll just
138
look.
are all black.
Do you even care?
Jurors on their way, right?
And yes, I am talking with my mouth full because you are so frickin' aggravating, woman. Oh my God. I can't. I just can't anymore with you. I just can't. I am done with you. I hate your face. She's ridiculous. Doesn't even care how it looks. Seriously, she doesn't even care. She knows she can get away with it.
Please rise for the jury.
Because she can't get fired. Should be illegal. Need your ass in jail. Yes. Oh, Jill. Yes.
order the session, please be seated.
I can crush your head all day
Mr.
now.
Brennan, whenever, I'm sorry.
Well, the rest of the day. Oh, Carla, it's so much fun.
Good afternoon, Dr. Locke.
Put your
Good
fingers up,
afternoon.
close one eye.
You are.
You were asked on direct examination about your qualifications.
Put your fingers up, apart from each other. Close one eye. Put Bev's head right in the middle of your fingers. And then close them and crush your head. I'm crushing your head. I'm crushing your head. Crushing your head.
You were a medical examiner for the state of Rhode Island, is that fair to say?
Yes, I was the chief medical examiner.
For 20 years?
12 years.
I'm sorry, 12 years. When's the last time you worked as a medical examiner?
In 2005.
When's the last time that you conducted an autopsy?
I've done probably a handful of autopsies, private autopsies in my consulting practice.
Since 2005?
Correct.
When do you think the last time you did one is?
Maybe 4 years ago, four or 5 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago?
Yes.
Okay. Since you left the medical examiner's office, have you had any specialized training in brain injuries?
It's all part of keeping up with the medical literature and knowing the forensic pathology literature, reading medical literature. So it's a continuing endeavor to keep yourself educated with medical updates.
Since you left the medical examiner's office, have you had any specialized training in brain injuries?
I've not gone to a course on brain injuries.
Since you left the medical examiner's office, have you taught any students on brain injuries?
Yes.
Have you given any classes or seminars on brain injuries?
Yes, I have.
In coup counter coup, how many times have you experienced that as a medical examiner, that condition?
Well, I myself haven't experienced it, which was good, but in cases, hundreds of cases, it's a common injury.
You said you did differential diagnosis. That is to exhaust any potential bias you have, correct?
Well, a differential diagnosis is to think, how many ways can you get this finding? And it does help prevent bias.
Did you say on direct examination, part of the benefit of differential diagnosis is to make sure that you don't have a bias?
Yes, yes.
In order to eliminate bias, you're supposed to look at all reasonable alternatives, correct?
Yes, that's part of it, making a differential diagnosis.
So you don't just look at a person's body, come to a conclusion, and ignore other evidence. That would kind of defeat the purpose of differential diagnosis, wouldn't it?
Well, you always have to look at all the evidence.
And so if you didn't look at all the evidence and you disregarded some of the evidence because you had already made up your mind, that really wouldn't be the proper study of differential diagnosis, would it?
Right, I don't do that.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
I don't do that. I always look at all the evidence.
And would you look at all the evidence even if it was contrary to whatever opinion you wanted to give in court?
Well, the evidence allows me to come to an opinion. So it's not like I decide on some opinion I want to give and then look for the evidence. The evidence is going to tell me what happened to the body.
So you would never say, like, I don't need to look at that evidence. If it's presented to you, you would look at it and study it and consider it in differential diagnosis?
Sure, it may or may not apply, but I'd look at it.
Because if you did that and said, well, I don't need to look at this, and it was relevant evidence, that would defeat the whole idea of differential diagnosis, correct?
Well, you always want to look at all the evidence that's going to help you decide what happened to the body.
If you were to ignore relevant evidence because you already made your mind up, that could create some type of bias, even if you're not recognizing it, correct?
Well, I don't make my mind up. I make it up on all the evidence I have. Then if something else other evidence comes up later, I have to reevaluate everything and consider that new evidence.
When you were talking about car collisions, I don't want to belabor the point, but you didn't major in physics, did you?
In what?
You didn't major in physics, did you?
No, I took physics, but no, didn't major in it.
Okay. And the last time you took physics was probably, what, undergrad?
Correct. Thank goodness.
You have no study in biomechanical engineering?
Mechanical engineer.
Understood. You never taught courses in accident reconstruction, have you?
Only in terms of looking at the injuries on the body and showing how that they could or could not have occurred from impact with a motor vehicle.
Have you taught classes in accident reconstruction?
Only as far as it would affect the findings on the body.
Do you know what I mean by when I say accident reconstruction?
Well, accident reconstruction meaning, and I'm telling you that my expertise in accident reconstruction is restricted to looking at the body and then understanding how impacts may or may not have occurred to the body. I don't take a car and look at mileage and such like that.
You don't do any studies of the actual vehicles, you're focused on the body?
I'm focused on the body, but I also look at the vehicles to look at the points of impact that might be possible.
You do not have any advanced study in biomechanics, do you?
No.
Now, you had mentioned that when you were in the medical examiner's office, you had a number of higher profile cases.
Good defense attorney.
Well, every case is important because somebody's dead.
You pointed out some pretty specific ones on direct examination. Were those more important, the ones that were highlighted, or is that the same as every other case?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you had mentioned the Egypt airline crash, station nightclub fire. Those were highlighted or pronounced on direct examination. Are they equally important as every other case?
Oh, absolutely. Every person is my patient.
You talked about some of your commendations. The station nightclub fire, you received quite a bit of criticism on that, didn't you?
Well, there was a flurry of negative press without any basis.
You had mentioned that a doctor, a medical examiner, should have gone out to the scene to look at the area where John O'Keefe was found to make observations. Did you suggest that in any way on direct examination?
You have to know what the scene looks like, and usually that is documented in police reports and in police photographs who document the scene. S-100.
And you received criticism because you were repeatedly requested by emergency responders and police officials to come to the scene, and you refused?
That's incorrect. First of
Okay.
all, nobody called me to come to the scene, and medical examiners are not first responders. As soon as I got a call that there was that fire in the nightclub, my investigator went right to the scene, and I was in constant communication with him throughout the early morning hours of that horrible accident. And I went into the medical examiner's office because I had to start getting ready to run our office 24 hours a day to not only take care of the poor individuals who expired in the nightclub fire, but also the regular work of the medical examiners. So there was no need for me to go to the scene because I had my investigator there, and my job would be at the office to get things all set up to handle the influx of deceased.
Did you receive criticism that over 17 hours there was an effort to have you come to the scene, but you refused?
There were,
I'm going to allow it in a different form.
yeah, that's incorrect.
Hold on,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to scare you. Just
Oh. Okay.
hold on for a second.
Okay.
Ask him differently, Mr. Brennan, please.
Did you receive criticism that officials?
I'm going to allow it based on the ending, pursuant to the ending. Let's hear it.
Did you receive criticism that for over 17 hours officials were asking you to come to the scene and you refused?
It was untrue. It was printed in the newspaper. We looked up all the phone records and provided it to the newspapers and showed that nobody called me to go. I would have gone if I needed to. I had my investigator there. It was just bullshit. No, it was erroneous.
Was there other criticisms in 2005 before you left the office?
No, there was a flurry
Yeah,
of
the
stuff in the
quiet part out
papers. There
loud.
were union issues,
Rodney.
new new director of health, new governor. So yeah, there was a little flurry of stuff, which was not substantive.
So you inevitably did resign in 2005.
Yes, because my budget was going to be cut, and I knew that if I had to get rid of a medical examiner, we couldn't do a good job for the state, and I'd done it. I'd been chief for 12 years. I'd been on call 24 hours a day for 12 years, which was an honor, really. But then if I couldn't do a good job, if we cut the budget, I had to get rid of a medical examiner. I couldn't serve the people of Rhode Island well, so I resigned.
Did you resign shortly after the audits and criticism?
No.
Same year?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Okay. After you resigned, you opened your own company?
Yes, I started an independent consulting practice.
How much of your business is consulting?
It's a consulting practice.
Yep. How much of your business, how much of your income is consulting?
100%. It's consulting.
Duh,
Do you
Brennan.
consult in both criminal and civil cases?
Yes, I do.
What percentage of cases are criminal cases?
It's maybe half and half.
Half criminal, half civil?
I don't keep track of it in that way, but that would be a guess.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I don't keep track of numbers of civil or criminal cases that I'm consulted in. If I had to give an estimate, it would be half and half. I've worked on over 1,000 cases in my private company.
And fair to say you get compensated for your time.
Yes, I get paid for my time.
Dr. La Posada, you had mentioned that there were some scratches that you had taken a look at on Mr. O'Keefe's body. If we could have exhibit. Now, would it be fair to say, Dr. La Posada, you do not know the genesis of that cut on Mr. O'Keefe's right eye?
I do not know what caused it. I can tell you what didn't cause it, but I don't know what did cause it.
You said that was from blunt force?
It's from application of blunt force to that little area that broke the skin.
When you were asked a question about whether that was consistent with a punch, you opined that it was consistent with a punch, yes?
It could be consistent with a punch.
You weren't saying it was consistent with a punch to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, were you?
That would be within my differential diagnosis.
It could be consistent with all other types of blunt impact, or many other types of blunt impact, couldn't it?
That's correct.
Ground, perhaps?
No.
No, an object?
If it was an object that could get into that area under the eyebrow, yes.
You mentioned the spoiler on the back of Miss Reed's Lexus. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Do you know how tall John O'Keefe was?
He's around 7 foot, 5'11", I think, 7'2", something around in there.
No, he's more closer to 6'1". Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. And that spoiler on the Lexus, do you know how high off the ground that is?
No.
Did you ever try to measure it or ask for photos or any information about that?
No, I looked at the photos.
Did you ever ask for any measurements or try to take any measurements?
No.
Could I have exhibit 166, please?
Say it again, because he wasn't hit by the car.
Did you
Come
see
on,
this
say it
cut
again.
on Mr. O'Keefe's nose?
That's a scratch. It's not made by a sharp instrument. It's not a cut. It's a scratch.
Is there any scratches on the left side? Do we have a photo of the left side? Please. And that, you say that's a scratch, not a cut?
Correct, because a cut means it's made by a sharp thing, like a knife, and a scratch is made by something that's kind of rounded that has a little point on it, but it's not sharp.
Do you have any information or basis to say where that scratch came from?
No.
Did you do any differential diagnosis on that scratch?
I don't know what caused that. There could be a number of things that caused it.
There was no scratch on the right side of Mr. O'Keefe's nose?
I don't see it, no.
Could you zoom in, Ms. Gilman? So the only scratch is on the left side.
Looks to be, well, that's not a good photograph because there's some blood obscuring the skin.
Yes.
If my memory serves me, there was a scratch on the left side of the nose and maybe a small scrape on the tip of the nose.
And we can go back to the left side? And you said that could not have been caused by a sharp object?
Correct. It's not an incised wound. Incised wound means a bladed, sharp cut. This is a scratch, not made by a blade.
Were you aware the defendant made a statement that she pulled a piece of glass from the defendant's nose?
No.
And you would say that that wound is inconsistent with being caused by glass or a sharp object?
It would not be caused by a blade. It could be caused by a piece of glass that was thick.
I thought before I offered you that statement, you had said that it could not have been caused by glass. Do you now have a different opinion?
I don't remember saying it couldn't have been caused by glass.
He didn't.
Didn't you say it couldn't have been caused by glass or a sharp object?
No.
A sharp object.
Don't put words
Like
in
a
his mouth, Brennan.
sharp object, like, it's not
You
an
can take that down, please.
incised wound made by
She
a
said
blade.
blade.
It could be caused by something sharper that's thicker, but does not have a thin blade. So it could be caused by a thicker piece of glass.
If somebody is deceased, does any blood pressure from their heart still move in their body?
No, they're dead.
If somebody removed a sharp object like glass from somebody's face, would they spurt blood if they've died?
If you're dead, there's no blood pressure. So if you're dead and you remove something, there may be some superficial blood, but it's not going to have blood flow because your heart's not pumping blood out of the cut ends of the blood vessels.
So it's not going to spurt if you pull something out of a person's skin if they've passed?
You wouldn't get a spurt of blood from arterial pressure.
I just want to ask you a very few questions about hypothermia.
Sure.
You mentioned that Mr. O'Keefe's body temperature at the hospital was 80 degrees,
Yes.
and there's different ways to take somebody's or a body's temperature, isn't there?
Yeah, that was a rectal temperature, so that's a good representation of the body temperature.
Is the variance between a common practice of taking temperature by somebody's mouth and rectal, is it about a 3 or 4 degrees difference, or do you have a different experience?
It can be different. A rectal temperature gives you a better internal body temperature. The oral temperature, if you're breathing in or if you just had something cold in your mouth, may not register a proper temperature. So the rectal temperature is the preferred temperature for a medical diagnosis.
98.6 is an important temperature, isn't it?
Yeah, it's our usual normal body temperature.
And so, is there a standard? Is 95 degrees considered hypothermic?
If you have, then clinically you would start to worry that the person might be experiencing bad effects of hypothermia.
At 95 degrees?
At 95, you start to worry about it.
And could some of the things that happen is labored breathing?
Is what?
Labored breathing?
What about labored breathing?
Well, if someone is hypothermic, if they're 95 degrees, does it affect their breathing patterns?
Not especially.
Okay. Does it affect the way their respiratory system works?
No.
Does it have any
That would be
effects on the
breathing.
human body if you're hypothermic at 95 degrees?
No. You're still okay.
If that temperature continues to decline, it starts to become dangerous, doesn't it?
It can.
Mr. O'Keefe was evaluated, and at the hospital, his body temperature from a rectal reading was 80 degrees at about, what, 6:37?
Correct.
Did you know that before he got to the hospital, first responders had him in an ambulance?
Of course.
Did you know they turned the heat up and put blankets on him and tried to provide warmth to him before he got to the hospital?
Yes, that would be standard practice.
And that standard practice would usually add temperature to the person, wouldn't it?
Well, it might.
So it's possible it could, but it might not.
It usually doesn't add that much.
I see. And so inevitably, at 6:37, Mr. O'Keefe's body was 80 degrees.
Yes, when he got to the hospital, his rectal temperature was 80 degrees.
And so that is a drop from the standard, or what's expected of 98.6 degrees. That's a drop of at least 18.6 degrees.
Yes.
You mentioned that Mr. O'Keefe, after suffering his head injury, would not have moved other than twitching.
Correct. No purposeful movement.
Were you aware that he had an iPhone with healthcare data on it?
No.
Ah! It's health data, Brennan.
If there's no movement, assume for a second there's no movement of Mr. O'Keefe after 12:32:16, and he's found a little after 6 a.m. in the morning. That's about 5 hours, or 5.5 hours, correct?
About.
And if somebody is in the cold for 5.5 hours, that's consistent with dropping from 98.6 degrees to 80 degrees in body temperature, isn't it?
If the person is dead, yes.
If a person is outside in the cold and still alive, will their body temperature decrease?
If they can, people can die of hypothermia. But that's not the case here.
Oh, not the ultimate death, but if somebody's outside and they're alive and they're lying in the snow and it's below freezing, will they lose body temperature?
They will, especially if they're not bundled up well.
And body temperature can drop from 2.5 to 4 degrees an hour?
In a dead body.
Okay. In a living person, it can drop 1.5 degrees.
No. A dead body at room temperature will usually lose body temperature at like 1.5 degrees an hour. If a dead body is in a cold environment covered with snow and avalanche environments, the dead body can cool at 4 degrees per hour.
And so a person who is in cold conditions, starting to be covered by snow, less than freezing, they can lose body temperature when they're living, can't they?
If you're sure, you can. People die of hypothermia, but that's not the case here.
Well, someone could be alive, lose body temperature, and not die. That can happen, can't it?
Yeah.
Right. So if someone is in the cold, let's assume they're not dead for a second.
All
They're in the
right.
snow, below freezing, not moving. Can that person lose body temperature if they're still alive?
Sure. They just lie there. They can become hypothermic and die.
Even before they become hypothermic, can they lose body temperature?
Well, losing body temperature makes you hypothermic. Thermic is temperature and hypo means below. So your temperature goes down and you're hypothermic because it's going down.
And people can survive from being hypothermic if they get the right care.
Sure.
And so in that 5.5 hours, it is consistent with a person being outside in the cold and starting at 98.6 and ending at 80. That's consistent with being in the cold for 5.5 hours, isn't it?
For a dead body, yes. That's how a dead body would cool in a snow-covered cold environment.
And it could also be consistent with somebody who is alive for some time and then dies, correct?
I don't understand your question.
Somebody could be out in the cold, under the snow, sub-freezing. They could be alive for some time. Their body temperature could drop. And then when they pass and die, their body temperature could continue to drop probably at a more rapid pace. That still fits within
No.
5.5 hours, doesn't it, Dr. Laposada?
No.
Oh. Because if someone can drop 4 degrees of body temperature in an hour,
A dead body.
yes, it would only take about a little over 4 hours if it was at 4 degrees to go from 98.6 to 80. Yes?
Correct, yes. So he was exposed to that cold environment for 4 to 5 hours.
If somebody was alive for a couple of hours, it's a lower rate, say they'd lose 3 degrees. And then, after that couple hours, they lose body temperature at 4 degrees, that would still fit and be consistent with the drop from 98.6 to 30 degrees,
No.
to 80 degrees, wouldn't it?
No, you were saying a dead body cools in a cold environment at maybe 3 to 4 degrees an hour. And that has nothing to do with a living body and how long they can stay at a body temperature.
Do you disagree that somebody could be alive, lose body temperature out in the cold, freezing temperature below 32? They could lose body temperature at a certain rate, then die, and then continue to lose body temperature. Is that possible?
Die?
Anything's possible. It's just what's important is what happened in this case.
I'm asking for your medical opinion, though, rather than to be an advocate. As far as your medical opinion,
So sustained and outstretched.
Of course, thank you, Your Honor.
as far as your medical experience, could somebody be alive, outside, in the cold, below 32 degrees, not moving, covered by snow, still alive, and lose body temperature?
Sure.
And then could they, after an hour, 2 hours, could they then die and continue to lose more body temperature?
Sure.
You mentioned your opinion about injury to O'Keefe, and at one point you said that his injury was inconsistent with a taillight, and you said because there was no damage from the bumper. Do you remember saying that?
I don't think I said it quite that way.
Okay. Do you remember how you said it?
No.
Do you remember discussing or raising the issue of a bumper as part of your equation, that the injury to Mr. O'Keefe was inconsistent with the injuries?
He has no injuries on him that are consistent with being hit by the back of the SUV. That includes the spoiler, that includes the bumper.
Okay, if we could play video E, please. I want to ask you, Dr. Laposada, have you seen this video before?
No.
He wants her to say that he could have been alive and in the snow and could have gotten to that
Did you see
same
anything in
degree,
that video
and she's not having it.
that would suggest any contact between that mannequin and the vehicle's bumper?
I'm going to see you at sidebar on this for just a minute, please.
Ask for any additional materials?
All right, so jurors, I am going to strike the last bit of questioning of this witness and the video as it goes to this witness. All right.
Dr. Laposada, after you received materials, did you ever ask for any additional materials?
Let's see, I always make sure I have all the scene investigation, autopsy, medical records, police and witness investigate and witness statements. So I felt I had a pretty complete database. I didn't get the x-rays until a couple weeks ago, so that was delayed.
That was newer.
Yes.
You said a medical examiner has to make a determination in 90 days. Is that the rule?
When you work at a medical examiner's office, when you get a deceased in, our national standards want us to have the autopsy report completed and all the associated tests done within 90 days.
Can investigations occur and the additional accumulation of evidence happen after that 90 days?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lapasada.
Yes.
Are we gonna get the Rentschler today?
Dr.
Okay,
Lapasada,
hold on one second.
Don't think defense is resting today.
Jurors, when I strike something, that means disregard it. And what I've struck through this witness, the video that you just saw and some of the testimony means that if it's in evidence, but it is not part of your consideration with this witness. Okay. All right, go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
may I proceed? Thank you. Dr. Lapasada, you were just asked a series of questions about body cooling, correct?
Yes.
Does a body, as it's cooling, does it know if it's indoors or outdoors?
No.
If there's a very cold environment, be it indoor or outdoor environment, would it still cool?
Oh, absolutely.
And it would cool would it cool at the rates that you earlier described?
Yes,
Even if indoors, if that indoors was cold?
absolutely.
Your Honor, may we approach along with the Commonwealth very briefly?
I wish he would quit saying, stop being an advocate. I'm asking for your expert opinion. They're giving you their expert opinion, stupid. They're not being an advocate. They're giving you their opinion. Quit making it seem he's doing that for the jury. He wants the jury to think they're just giving the answers that the defense wants them to give. And he needs to be admonished to quit doing that. And every time he does it, they just let it go. And I think the defense used to object to it, and now they've given up because she doesn't do anything about it. Why are we looking at the fan?
View the x-rays, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Before I asked you a little bit about x-rays
Yes,
and the effect of x-rays on an evaluation by a forensic pathologist. Do you remember that?
yes,
Are x-rays important for a forensic pathologist to consider?
yes, they are.
Did you find any, you reviewed the x-rays, correct?
Absolutely.
I'm going to relegate my question to just the right arm of John O'Keefe.
Yes,
Did you find any deformities, defects, breaks, fractures, or hairline fractures of that kind on any of the x-rays that you did?
none.
May I approach you on?
Yes, I have a question for you. When you printed these, did you print them from a flash drive?
May I have them on?
Sure.
I have some assistance with this.
Do you have them up on the,
We do have electronic versions of this.
why don't we do that instead of the big, the large?
As long as I can mark the large ones, I want those marked and moved into evidence for reasons we discussed at sidebar.
So those will be, you're objecting to this, Mr. Bennett? Okay, well, even if the Commonwealth
Of course
objected,
he
I'll
is.
allow those in, but I'd prefer to give the jury a flash drive with these on them instead of these big. So we will mark your flash drive, and you can just go ahead, in evidence. We'll mark the flash drive. The flash drive will go in with the jury rather than these very cumbersome additional pieces of paper, and you can go ahead and show them.
If I could, I don't want to have a whole discussion in open court. If it please the court.
All right, jurors, we're going to make this one really quick.
I think we're caught up now.
And then I'll put them on an overhead. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
I recognize it by the medical examiner identification of Mr. O'Keefe, and I recognize the x-ray of the right hand, the right wrist, the right femur, and I can also tell by the R designation here that that's the right side of the body.
Is this what you reviewed in coming to your opinions and conclusions concerning injuries to his right hand?
Yes,
Thank you.
So these now will mark whatever the next exhibit in A, B, and C.
You can see, yes, Your Honor.
And who was it that said that he didn't have his hand, his arm x-rayed?
229.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I need to wait.
Oh,
May
shoot.
I approach?
Yes.
Dr. Hughes, is there?
I know what I
Sure.
forgot to do during the break. Put that
yes,
foot
this is
on.
a x-ray of the body of Mr. O'Keefe from the medical examiner's office. The R indicates the right side, and we see here the two bones of the arm. There's no injury to them. We see the pelvis bone, there's no injury to that bone. They're perfectly normal, and there's no abnormal soft tissue swelling. It's a normal right arm.
Thank you. I may have this marked as next to another B.
That may obviate the need to put it up, right?
It could.
The 229B.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Doctor, do you recognize this document?
Yes, this is another x-ray at the medical examiner's office of Mr. O'Keefe. And again, it shows the right side. We see something there. We see the shoulder, and the humerus, the upper arm bone. And the upper arm bone is totally normal. There's no soft tissue swelling around it. There's no breakage or microfractures.
Thank you, Doctor. With the court's permission, next in order, sub C is in Charlie.
Yes.
C.
Dr. Laposada, that's all I have for you. Thank you for coming.
Anything, Mr. Brennan?
No, thank you.
All right, Dr. Laposada, you are all set.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, is there anything else today? Yes.
What? Don't you dare, woman. Are you gonna quit early after you keep bitching that?
Okay, Jerry Smith, please stand up.
That's hilarious, right? Asked everyone to be clothed before turning on the video. He said that he didn't want a repeat of what happened in another group. Oh, that's hilarious. I don't know. I don't know why people. It's like a. I was gonna say it's like a telephone, but on a telephone you don't have to have clothes on. I don't know. People. Well, yeah, I guess pants are optional. Maybe if you're careful.
Sir, I need you to step up, face the clerk, and raise your right hand, please.
Yay!
Court and jury, in case down here is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
You're after me.
No, Your Honor. It's fine. It's fine. Feels good.
All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please, pull that to you. You're a little on the tall side. Pull that to you right up under your chin if you can. And in a nice, clear voice, tell the jurors your name and spell your last name for us, please.
Dr. Andrew John Rentschler, Renschler.
Sir, what do you do for a living?
I'm a biomechanist, a biomechanical engineer, and an accident reconstructionist.
Where do you work?
I work for a company called ARCA LLC.
Tell us a little bit about ARCA. What is ARCA?
ARCA is an engineering consulting firm. So we do litigation type work, both civil and criminal, where we look at, for instance, I do biomechanics. So I look at injury causation in different types of events, motor vehicle accidents, pedestrian, automobile incidents, accident reconstruction, as well as all types of really forensic type engineering. And we also do R&D, research and development, for private and governmental entities.
What's your current title?
I'm a vice president and director of biomechanics for the Midwest Division.
The director position that you hold, that's the official position at ARCA?
That's correct, yes, sir.
How are you ARCA's senior biomechanist?
I'm one of them, yes.
And how long have you held the position of director of biomechanics and human factors?
It's been at least 5 years. I don't recall exactly how long.
What exactly does is it biomechanist or biomechanist?
Biomechanist, yeah.
All right, I'll get it right by the time we're finished. What is a biomechanist? What do you do?
So a biomechanist really looks at the human body, and we look at the response of the human body to forces and accelerations. We apply traditional engineering, but to the human body. So a mechanical engineer, for instance, might look at a piece of steel, and you know the dimensions and size of the steel. If you apply a force in a certain direction with a certain magnitude, that steel will bend and eventually it'll break. Was a biomechanist or biomechanical engineer, I do the same thing, but I look at the human body. How much force has to be applied in what direction to get a specific type of injury, whether it's a fracture of your humerus, a concussion, and a vertebral disc injury. Any type of injury has what we call an injury mechanism. So we look at the response of how the body reacts to forces in different environments. Ultimately, our hope is to actually help prevent and mitigate accidents. You know, motor vehicle incidents, we look at the design of airbags and seatbelts. Sporting equipment, how can we reduce concussions and injuries associated with that? So ultimately, we try to figure out how to make the environment and the world safer for people in whatever type of interaction you might have.
Is that sometimes called injury causation analysis?
It is. That's one aspect of it. Injury causation analysis is looking at how an injury occurs. So if someone sustains an injury, as a biomechanist, I can look at the events surrounding that incident and determine how the injury occurred. Now, how someone was positioned, how much force had to have been applied to certain parts of their body to actually produce a given injury.
Why is injury causation analysis important in the broader field of biomechanics? Why do you want to know the causation of certain injuries?
Well, like I just said, our main goal and interest is to really mitigate and prevent injuries from occurring. So in order to do that, you have to know how they occur. You have to know, for instance, hockey, we do a lot of work with the NHL, how certain injuries occur, cervical injuries, concussions, shoulder injuries. So if your intent is to prevent injuries in certain settings and situations, you have to study how the body reacts, how those injuries are created, and then you can determine or attempt to determine how to prevent them from occurring in different events and situations.
What sort of contracts or commissions does ARCA routinely engage in?
You know, we have a number of different contracts. We've worked in the past with the United States military. I helped design what we call the energy absorbing seat for the MRAP vehicles.
Hold on one second, Dr. Larson.
Sure. An ambush protect armor-plated vehicles that they had over in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the issue there is that when they go over an IED, an improvised explosive device, it would blow the vehicle up off the ground. So we were seeing very severe accelerations and forces going through the vehicle, through the seat, into the soldiers' spines. And we're seeing severe spinal and head injuries as a result of that. So we worked with the military to design what we call an energy absorbing seat design. As the vehicle gets blasted up off the ground, the seat's designed to absorb that energy and that force from the blast and the movement of the vehicle and help protect the soldier's spine. We also, as I said, do a lot of work with the NHL. We work with the Department of Player Safety there, the National Hockey League. We look at the equipment, we look at helmets, trying to help prevent concussions, skate guards, how to prevent cuts and injuries due to the skates. One of the big things we did was actually redesign part of the rink. It used to be at the player area. At the end of the player area was a 90-degree stanchion of plexiglass. And what was happening was players were getting checked into the boards and then standing up against glass, getting head and cervical injuries. I've mentioned before, it was actually the Boston and Montreal that caused the NHL to take a look at it, the hit of Chara on Pacioretty. He sustained a concussion and a cervical fracture. So they gave us part of the rink to the Winter Classic, the outdoor contest, and we used crash test dummies, hybrid 3, 50th percentile male dummies, and threw them into different configurations of glass. And ultimately, the new design that we developed is a curved piece of spring-loaded Lexan or plexiglass. So now when the players get checked into the boards, it absorbs that impact and they glance off of it. And it's helped prevent and mitigate any type of head or neck injuries as a result of player interaction at that part of the rink.
Hockey players tend to be pretty big guys, right?
They do, yes.
You said you used the 50 percentile hybrid 3 as a crash test dummy, an ATD. to do your work in furtherance of the NHL contractor commission, correct?
That's correct.
Did you need to use a hybrid 3 that was the same size as these big, tall, 6'4", 230-pound hockey players?
No, not at all.
Why not?
There's a 95th percentile male dummy, which not many people have or use. The 50th percentile male is basically the gold standard for crash test dummies. And you're probably most familiar with it if you see automotive manufacturers and the ads on TV where they put the crash test dummy in the car and run them into walls and flip them over. Well, they use the 50th percentile for all of those tests. And then they scale the actual injury assessment reference values to different size people. So they record the force off of that, and they might say, well, for the 50th percentile average person, you can sustain 180 Gs of acceleration to the head before you see a severe injury. And then they'll scale that and say, well, the hybrid 3 has to record, say, 300 Gs before someone twice that size gets hurt. So you just use one size dummy, and then you scale that to whatever size person you're looking at or you want to actually investigate.
Is that undertaking of mathematical scaling, is that an industry standard in biomechanics?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's set forth in NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration. They set, well, the government sets the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards. And that's all the crash tests that vehicles have to go through. And during those tests, they have to ensure that the value Oh, it certainly is, yes, sir.
Dr. Rentschler, do you specialize in any particular research and analysis at ARCA to evaluate the relationships between crash injuries and crash forces?
I do, yes.
What about kinematics?
Kinematics is one of the specialties, yes, sir.
Fancy word, probably nobody knows. I didn't know it before I met some of the folks involved in this case. What does kinematics mean?
Kinematics is just motion of the human body. So it's looking at how the body moves in different situations. Whether you're in a vehicle and it hits a wall, how does your body move? It moves forward. Will it load into the seatbelt? Does the airbag deploy? Or if you're a pedestrian and you're struck by a car, how does the body move as a result of that interaction? That allows us to look at the loading to the body. Forces are exerted on someone's body because their body's loaded by different objects or different forces. So kinematics is one of the first steps. If you're going to look at injury causation, you have to determine the kinematics of an event.
What are human tolerances?
Human tolerance is really just looking at how much force it takes to cause an injury. So there's been generations of testing to look at different forces. For instance, the humerus, the upper bone in your upper arm. How much force does it take to cause that fracture? They've tested the cadaver bones. There's a lot of research for decades there, looking at different parts of the body, the ulna is in your forearm, skull fractures. Almost any type of injury, again, has an injury mechanism, and in order to determine how it occurs, we have to look at tolerance. How much force can the body withstand before you start to see a specific injury? ARCA now for about 17 and a half years.
How many cases have you been a part of in terms of investigating or conducting crash injury analysis?
Over my whole career, probably thousands of cases. I've been doing this since 2004, so for about 21 years total.
Dr. Rentschler, are you able to estimate how many of those cases, just potentially thousands of cases, have been local pedestrian circumstances?
There's hundreds of cases. A lot of them are motor vehicle accidents, but certainly a large percent's automobile pedestrian type impacts.
What education, training, and background qualifies you to perform the duties that you just told us about as the Director of Biomechanics and Human Factors at ARCA?
Well, I got my BS in mechanical engineering with a minor in biomedical engineering from Carnegie Mellon University in 1995. I then went on to get my master's in bioengineering and biomechanics from the University of Pittsburgh in 2002. And then I got my PhD in bioengineering biomechanics from the University of Pittsburgh in 2004. Member of SAE, the Society of Automotive Engineers, as well as the American Society for Mechanical Engineers, ASME.
Are you also a reviewer for an outfit called Archives of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation in Biomechanical Engineering?
I have. I've done peer-reviewed articles for those journals before, yes, sir.
When you say peer-reviewed articles, you're the peer reviewer?
That's right. If you want to submit a scientific article to a journal, you'll write that manuscript and then submit it to the journal, and then they'll send it out to other experts or peers in that same field, probably 3 others normally. And then they'll review that transcript, send it back with any suggested revisions. And then usually the author will make changes, send it out again, and that's how it gets accepted. Usually it goes through several different iterations before a paper is actually published.
Have you received any additional training following your PhD, formal training or otherwise, in the field of biomechanics?
I have, yes.
Describe some of that for us, please.
Throughout the years, I've taken classes through the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, as well as SAE, as I said, Society of Automotive Engineers, and at different universities, Virginia Tech, different seminars and classes with respect to biomechanics.
Is that normal to, even for someone at your education level, a PhD, to take continuing education to stay up on issues in your field?
It is. You take continuing education and then also just working with your peers. And when you work in a certain company, for instance, at ARCA, we don't do just litigation. We do the research and development. We have an epic sports branch at ARCA where we look at sports performance of athletes, how to help them perform better, whether you're a baseball player, volleyball player. So it's really the experience and the work that you do that also helps keep you up to date with
Injuries that was offered by the NTSB?
That's correct, yes.
IPTM?
Correct, yes.
What is the IPTM?
That's the Institute for Police Technology and Management. It's actually a school down in Jacksonville, Florida, that offers basically vehicle crash reconstruction and biomechanical classes.
What about human factors in traffic crash reconstruction, also offered by the same outfit?
Yes.
Did you take a course in automobile safety and injury biomechanics from, is this the one from Virginia Tech?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Did SAE offer a course in injuries, anatomy, biomechanics, and federal regulations?
Yes, that was in Detroit, I think, where SAE is based.
And you took that seminar as well?
Yes.
What about vehicle accident reconstruction methods offered by the SAE?
I've taken that class before, yes.
Linear momentum analysis offered by CAARS?
That was, yes, in a class out in California.
Motor vehicle accident reconstruction offered by SAE?
I've taken that class as well, yes.
Advanced collision investigations out of California law enforcement?
Yeah, I believe that was a 2-week class I took. That's the introductory class.
And what about the post-collision passenger vehicle inspection and seatbelt analysis offered by CARS, CAARS?
I've taken that as well, yes, sir.
Have you actually published yourself along with you and your colleagues?
I have published, and that was mainly when I was in graduate school, doing graduate work. I worked at the Human Engineering Research Lab. We helped people with disabilities. We looked at users, for the arm, such as that. So I did primarily when I was in graduate school at the University of Pittsburgh.
When you were in graduate school, approximately how many publications did you participate in, either yourself or with colleagues?
Probably 10 or 12 papers, and then some abstracts, and I believe a book.
As an expert in the area of biomechanics and accident reconstruction.
I have, yes.
Approximately how many times?
Oh, I've testified throughout my career probably over 150 times in both state and federal courts throughout the country.
I want to talk to you for a second, Dr. Rentschler, about how you began working on this particular case, the case that's before the bench. When were you initially retained in connection with this case?
We were initially retained, I believe it was for the first trial. It was, I believe, maybe it was the fall prior to that actual trial that was last year.
All right. When you were, by the way, initially, were you hired by the defense?
No, we were not.
Were you hired by the Commonwealth?
We were not, no.
Was that a separate agency that hired you?
It was, yes.
It wasn't an insurance company, was it?
It was not, no, sir.
Okay. What were you initially asked to do by this separate entity?
Initially, we were kind of constrained in what we were asked to do and to review, but we were asked to evaluate whether the injuries sustained by Mr. O'Keefe were consistent with being struck by the Lexus.
And who at ARCA was assigned on the team to undertake this commission?
There was myself, Dr. Dan Wolf, and I believe Mr. Scott Klein was another engineer who was involved.
And did all three of you join in the analysis that ultimately ended up in a report that you authored, or the three of you authored together?
We did, yes, sir.
What materials did you review in furtherance of your initial consultation in this matter?
Obviously, I looked at the medical records. We looked at photographs of the vehicles, information about the vehicle, photographs of the actual incident scene, various information pertaining to the Lexus itself.
You know who Dr. Dan Wolf is?
I do, yes.
Is that the other person, the Dan Wolf, the Dr. Wolf that you just mentioned?
That's correct, yes.
Did you and Dr. Wolf look at basically the same set of information? You were provided the same set of information?
We did, yes. We were provided a tranche of information that all three of us looked at, yes.
Can you explain the difference between your area of expertise and Dr. Wolf's area of expertise? I don't want you to get into his analysis, just what area he covers. In other words, you're dealing with a Lexus and a pedestrian, Mr. John O'Keefe, correct?
Correct, yes.
What's the difference between the analysis that you undertook and the responsibilities of Dr. Dan Wolf?
So Dr. Wolf really concentrated looking at the vehicle itself and the damage to the vehicle, the damage to the taillight, which is really the only damage we have to that vehicle. And so his analysis pertained to evaluating the force associated with producing that damage, what's consistent with causing that type of fracture and damage to the taillight itself. My part of the investigation was really looking more at the injuries and looking at Mr. O'Keefe and his kinematics and his alleged or any interaction between him and the vehicle, and whether that would be consistent with his injuries as well as the damage that we see to the Lexus as evaluated by Dr. Wolf.
Did you ultimately issue a report, an initial report summarizing your opinions and your conclusions following your analysis?
We did, yes, sir.
About when was that report issued?
I believe it was sometime in February.
February of what year?
It would have been February of last year,
Okay,
2024.
2024, okay,
Correct.
thank you. Were you able to provide an analysis, given the information that you had, were you able to provide an analysis for the biomechanical aspect of the analysis of the case?
I was, yes, sir.
All right, did you review medical records and other materials?
I did, yes.
Did you make note of anything with regard to Mr. O'Keefe's injury or injuries based on what you reviewed initially when you began your analysis?
I did, yes.
Can you describe what you noted in terms of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries?
There were really just two basically different areas of injury. There was injury to the head. There was a laceration on the rear kind of right occipital region of the head, which resulted in fractures, an occipital skull fracture, which is the rear part of your skull, as well as basilar skull fractures that propagated up through the skull. And then there were injuries which were noted or diagnosed to be superficial abrasions along his right arm.
What is a subscapular hemorrhage?
Subscapular is,
Yes.
yeah, with respect to the head, is that
Yes,
what? Yes,
as it relates to the head.
Yes, well, so when we talk about there's subarachnoid, there's PIA hemorrhages, but basically they're hemorrhages, and scapular is hemorrhage under the scalp, but above the skull. So subdural is within on the surface of the brain, but scapular means that it's a hematoma or bleeding that occurs under the scalp but above the actual skull.
Did you note subscapular hemorrhage in your analysis of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries?
There was, yes, I believe there was extensive subscapular hemorrhaging.
What about skull fractures?
There were, as I described, a occipital skull fracture in the back of the skull that then propagated forward the calvarium as well as the basilar or the base of the skull.
You mentioned subdural hemorrhage as one of the issues that you would look at normally. Did you note whether Mr. O'Keefe suffered from subdural hemorrhage?
He did, yes. He had sustained subdural hemorrhage as a result.
And also subarachnoid hemorrhage?
Correct, yes.
What about bilateral orbital ecchymosis?
He did, yes, bruising along the eyes, basically.
What does bilateral mean? Both?
Bilateral means left and right, correct.
Did you note a 1 centimeter or approximately 1 centimeter laceration to the upper right eyelid?
There was, yes, 1 centimeter, yeah, and so, that's a little less than half an inch laceration right above the right eye.
What about abrasions to the anterior and left aspect of the nose?
There were some abrasions on the nose and then I believe a few lacerations as well.
Laceration on the right anterior tongue?
The tongue was lacerated, yes.
You noted, with regard to one of Mr. O'Keefe's extremities, abrasions along that extremity.
Superficial abrasions, that's correct, sir.
Describe which arm we're talking about and what part of the arm.
It was the right arm, and it was from the forearm up towards the top of the shoulder. And there were various abrasions, what were diagnosed as superficial abrasions along that kind of posterior aspect of the arm, the elbow, forearm, and the upper arm.
When you undertake an analysis, do you use biomechanics and kinematics both to try to evaluate whether or not a specific set of injuries are consistent or inconsistent with a proposed set of facts? Or I guess I'll just leave it there, a proposed set of facts.
Yeah, I mean, those are basic steps to look at how an injury occurs. I mean, first you have to identify the injury, and that's by looking at the medical records and determining what the diagnosed injuries are. And then you have to determine the kinematics and the kinetics associated with a certain event. So how did the person move? How was their body moved? Did they interact with anything? And how did that result in loading or force being applied to the body? Those are basic steps of a biomechanical injury causation analysis.
How did you go about undertaking those steps in this particular case?
So in this particular case, we looked at how those injuries are actually produced or created. So occipital skull fracture, you need a sufficient force. You need a force of around maybe 1,400 or 1,600 pounds applied at the back of the skull to actually cause a fracture like that. The abrasions, superficial abrasions, and an abrasion is basically rubbing or scraping or friction that kind of scrapes away the top part of your skin, the epidermis. You have the epidermis, the dermis, and then the hypodermis. An abrasion is just gets into the top epidermis and doesn't get any farther. Laceration is an actual tearing or ripping of the skin, usually down past the epidermis into the dermis. And so that takes either a blunt object or a sharp edge, depending on whether it's an incision or laceration, to actually produce that type of an injury.
Did you look at patterns of injuries on Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
Did you also, the other side of that handshake, did you also look at damage to the vehicle, physical damage to the Lexus?
We did, yes. Our goal or what we were tasked with was to determine whether the injuries are consistent with the damage to the car. So clearly, you look at how these injuries are created, what injury mechanism you need to produce them, and then you look at the damage to the car. Can you line up contact between where those injuries occurred and how they occurred with damage to the vehicle?
What kind of materials did you review? In addition to, I'm guessing, photographs?
Photographs, yes. Autopsy photographs as well as photographs of the vehicle and the damage to the Lexus.
What about medical records, hospital records, things of that nature?
Absolutely. That's the first step, looking at the injuries to find what the injuries are, what are the diagnosed injuries, as well as it's important to determine what injuries don't exist, because that's also helpful in determining whether certain impacts may or may not have actually occurred.
Did you receive a full file from the medical examiner's office in this case?
I did, yes, sir.
Did you also receive police reports, follow-up reports, witness statements, things of that nature in this case?
We did, yes.
Did you receive any data concerning the vehicle itself, contained either in police reports or follow-up reports or expert reports?
We did, yes.
Mr. Jackson, I'm just going to ask you to slow down
I'm
the
sorry.
cadence of your voice a little bit.
It's late in the day and I'm doing it again, aren't I? I'll slow down. I forgot where I left off, but let me ask you sort of openly, was there anything else that you considered and analyzed in at least building a database from which you would build an analysis?
Well, yeah, I mean, we review all the materials that are provided to look at all the injuries, to look at all aspects of the vehicle, damage to the vehicle, information about what the vehicle may have been doing. Any other evidence that may help contribute to looking at what either caused the injuries or what may or may not have caused the damage to that vehicle.
When you and your teammates undertook this analysis, did you even know who we were?
Initially, we did not. No, initially, I personally didn't know anything about the case. And we were asked not to do any research or to look up anything about it. We were given certain parameters, certain information, and that was it.
Did you follow those instructions?
I did, yes.
The undertaking, the analysis that you did, was it in keeping with the accepted methodology or methodologies in your field of engineering?
It was, yes.
Did you ultimately reach some opinions and conclusions based on that initial investigation or analysis?
I did, and we did it at ARCA, yes. Myself, Dr. Wolf, and Mr. Klein did.
Did you reach any opinions or conclusions with regard to the force required to produce the occipital skull fracture that you noted with Mr. O'Keefe, his head being struck by the rear tail lamp of the subject Lexus?
I did, yes.
Tell me what those opinions and conclusions were.
Well, again, we determined by looking at research and tolerance values that it would take about 1,400 to 1,600 pounds of force to cause an occipital skull fracture. Now, we were tasked with looking at, again, could that result from impact with the car? So one of the things we did is we took a head from a dummy, basically, that's instrumented with accelerometers, and we dropped it onto a taillight cover to attain a speed of 15 miles an hour. And so that would be comparable to the vehicle striking the head at 15 miles an hour. And I concluded a few things from that. A, that the force wasn't sufficient, or the acceleration wasn't sufficient to produce enough force to cause a skull fracture at 15 miles an hour. And also, when you look at the position and configuration of the occupant, it really wasn't possible to get a skull fracture by hitting the taillight and not sustain any other significant fractures. For instance, where the taillight's positioned to have an impact to the back of the head, you really couldn't have someone positioned in such a manner to strike just the head and not have subsequent concomitant injury to the neck or any other part of the body. So my findings with respect to the skull or the occipital skull fractures was that it likely did not occur as a result of contact, specifically with the taillight cover on the rear passenger side of the Lexus.
So as to the question of whether Mr. O'Keefe suffered the occipital skull fracture as a result of being hit by the tail lamp at 15 miles an hour, were you able to scientifically rule that out?
I was, yes, sir.
Was that to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
It was, yes.
Did you reach any opinions or conclusions regarding the abrasions on the right arm that you noted earlier on Mr. O'Keefe's body?
Yes, I believe my conclusions with respect to the abrasions are that it was inconsistent with contact to the tail light. And that not only that those injuries are inconsistent, but you would expect additional injuries, likely fractures to the hand and or the forearm, depending on the actual speed of the vehicle.
Other than the expectation that you would see fractures or other damage to the arm, what was the basis for your opinion that the linear abrasions would not result from impact with a non-damaged taillight traveling in reverse?
What you have to look at the kinematics associated with that, and that in order to get just superficial abrasions, that doesn't take a significant amount of force, but essentially that to have an arm contact the rear of the car, and we weren't really given any theory of how the arm contacted the car. So initially, we weren't privy to any theories or allegations of how this may occur. So just generally speaking, looking at the arm, how it would contact the car, and subsequent movement and interaction with the light cover, my opinion was that the injuries would be inconsistent, or the injuries that Mr. O'Keefe sustained on his right arm and didn't sustain would be inconsistent with actual interaction with the taillight.
Doctor, were your opinions and conclusions, along with those of your colleagues, reduced to a report?
They were, yes, sir.
Was that report, to your knowledge, ultimately turned over to both the defense and the Commonwealth in this case?
To my knowledge, it was, yes, sir.
I'm going to change gears for a second and bring us forward to the spring of 2024, after February of 2024, moving into the start of 2025. Did the defense at some point reach out to ARCA and contact you and Dr. Wolf?
They did, yes.
That was back in 2024 after the spring, correct?
That's correct, yes.
At some point, did the defense engage you specifically to testify
Yes.
this year?
This year?
This year, meaning
Yes.
this trial. Were you asked to conduct further testing in furtherance of your potential testimony in this trial?
We were, yes, sir.
And were you provided additional materials from the defense in furtherance of your potential testimony and your testing?
Yes, we were provided additional material with respect to, yes, the theory of how this may have occurred and how Mr. O'Keefe may have sustained his injuries, allegedly.
Included in the materials that you were provided in anticipation of your testimony in this case, in this trial, were you provided anything from a company called Aperture?
We were, yes.
What were you provided from Aperture?
We were provided a written report from Aperture, a PowerPoint presentation, about 140 some pages from Aperture, and then a file material, I believe, what was reviewed and the results of some testing that Aperture had conducted with respect to this case.
Was it your understanding that the Aperture PowerPoint was authored by a particular individual?
Yes, sir.
Who authored that PowerPoint as far as you knew it?
As far as I'm aware, it was Dr. Judson Welcher.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
Okay.
I would love to have a trial with no sidebars. It would be so nice. I'm confused now because I don't know who took the darn x-rays. Because I know one of Brennan's experts, I don't remember who he was now, because somewhere along the line, I quit taking notes because it was just expert. They sounded like the adults on Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. So, I don't know which one it was. No, that sounds like fun. Does anyone remember that game Motor Mouth where you worked off a card as quickly as possible without fumbling it? No, I don't. That sounds like a fun game, though. We had a game. Well, my parents had a game. I used to watch them play. They never let me play. Well, they did when I got a little bit older. I can't remember the name of it. But it was like a timed version of charades. And you put the cards in a little wheel, and there was like a little window, and it was kind of like a slide machine for you old people that remember slides. And it would go around in a circle, and so one of the slides would come around and show up in the window, and you had just for the period of time it was in the window to act it out and have the other person figure out what you were acting out. Come on, StreamYard. There it is. It was from the late 1980s or early 1990s when that Mr. Motormouth guy was a minor celeb. Oh, the guy that talks super, super fast? That guy? That he did the commercials with like all the, like the fine print at the end of the commercial that he could talk really fast. And so he was in all these commercials where he talked super, 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 super fast. Yeah, I remember that guy. I don't remember the game, though. Was it Welcher? Maybe it was.
So jurors, that was about scheduling. We picked up a lot of time today. I think it was because we did spend less time at sidebar and less time doing things outside your presence. So we're back on track, and we're going to let you go for today, and we're expecting a full day tomorrow. I can tell you, the lawyers tell me that we're definitely winding down. Okay, so please, those same 3 cautions, do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. And please continue to be very careful with your social media use. So we'll see you ready to start at 9 o'clock.
So it was Welcher that said no x-rays? And La Posada said it was the ME that took them? I know she said there were scans done. Did they do like a full body scan of him? I don't think they would have been done at the ER. I don't know for certain, but what, Belle?
Maybe seated.
You're all set, Dr. Rensler. I
Thank
should
you.
have told you, I'm sorry. We'll see you tomorrow morning as well. Thank you. All right. So first of all, anybody object if I give Ms. McLaughlin back the paperwork on the State of Rhode Island versus Michael Patino transcript or whatever she was giving me? Any objection to that? All right, thank you. All right, so Mr. Jackson, for purposes of your edits, so the text will be removed from 5, 6, 8, 9, 23, the word measurements, I think, is perhaps the only word there. 24, 31, 32, 33, 34, 46, 47, 54, 55, 56, 58, 66, 67, 68, 69, 71, 72, 73, 74, and 75, and 76. Separately, pursuant to what will be an upcoming evidentiary ruling on whether foundation has been made, if you could separately have a way to exclude, if it becomes appropriate based on whatever ruling, based on the foundation that you're going to attempt to put.
Well,
So at sidebar, once you do this, or if you talk to the Commonwealth, if there's no objection to some of those numbered slides that I said needed to be edited, if the Commonwealth agrees that they come in, you can go ahead and put them in because I would allow them if it's by agreement. Okay? All right. So do you expect that we will finish with Dr. Rentschler tomorrow?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Brennan?
I don't think I'll be as long as I was with Dr. Wolf,
Okay.
depending on how it goes. If he has an hour and a half, I expect I'll probably be about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. And then we'll figure out where we are Thursday. It seems that the case may be ready to go to the jury Friday, maybe Monday at the latest. But that's,
By Monday. Based on our conversation.
does that seem like a fair estimate to you, Mr. Brennan?
I think we can be ready Friday.
Okay. All right. So we'll see. Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll see everybody tomorrow morning.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
should I have Dr. Welcher in for tomorrow or wait for Wednesday?
Um,
Oh, tomorrow's Wednesday.
tomorrow's Wednesday already. Can we, Mr. Jackson, can we reevaluate that mid-morning or the luncheon break and see where we are, whether we need Dr. Welcher here in the afternoon?
Of course.
Okay. All right. We'll do that.
I think Mr. Alessi will have one issue he'd like to address the court.
Yes, Your Honor. With regard to various exhibits that Your Honor said would be admitted based upon the issue that we had with regard to the Exhibit 88, Your Honor said you would...
Yes, we'll put those into evidence.
Thank you very much. Your Honor.
Okay.
That was the only item pressing for today.
I said yesterday they'd come in, they're coming in. Okay, so those will be in evidence. Mr. Brennan, you were on notice yesterday that I was letting those in. Okay, all right, we're all set. We'll see you tomorrow.
All rise for the court, please.
Goodbye.
Why am I muted? Okay, cool. Can you hear me? I'm really curious now. I want to know who took x-rays. Because if it was Rentschler, or Welcher, I get those two names mixed up for some reason. So if Welcher said no x-rays were done, but then La Posada said they were, I tend to believe that they were. I mean, aside from the fact that Welcher's a crackpot, I just don't believe him. She's an ME, so like she knows what's done during an autopsy. And I think that is one of the routine things that you do in an autopsy is x-ray the body. But I don't think it would have been done at the ER because now I don't know for 100% positive. Of course, I wasn't there. I don't know. I have seen codes though, being a nurse, and the most important thing is trying to bring the person back to life. So they don't worry about broken bones, scratches, wounds, nothing like that. Everything is about getting this person's heart beating again. And you might have 24 people in that room. And not everybody's going to be doing something. They're just going to be standing there on standby. And the people that are actively working stuff might be handing specimens or, you go do this. I need this. You go get me this. But it's not like you're not going to have one person like swabbing wounds and one person x-raying an arm, or that's not how it works. So yeah, his arm should have been swabbed. His wounds should have been swabbed, but that was not their focus at the time. They weren't thinking, oh, this guy's going to die. We need to swab his wound for DNA. No, that's not the ER's role. Now, later, when Buchanan and whoever crime scene person went to the hospital to see the body, that's when they should have swabbed the wounds on his arm for DNA. That's their role. That's when they should have done that. But x-rays, that should have been the ME. Why Welcher said there were no x-rays done, if there were, I don't know. But I think that needs to be revisited. I think that, especially since Welcher is going to come back, I think that they need to ask him, why did you say there were no x-rays done? But that's just me. I don't like to leave things undone like that. That's my personality. So I would absolutely, whether it mattered or not, I would want to come back and say, Dr. Welcher, why did you say there were no x-rays taken when there were x-rays taken? Not that it matters, but that's just how I roll. What? I just gave you a cookie. I gave you cookie. I gave you pita chips. You ate part of my salad at lunch. What else can I do for you, young lady? She's driving me crazy. Well, I guess that's it for today. Brennan was not too slimy, sneaky today. I guess. Not really. He behaved for the most part, I guess, as good as he can. And my tech held up okay, I guess, as good as it can. I don't know what you want. I just gave you a cookie. I can see you trying to use telepathy, but it's not working, dear. She's shaking. She's concentrating so hard while she stares at me. She's just shaking. Okay, guys, I will see you in the morning for Phil Spector and again at 9 o'clock for Karen Reed. So please be here. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you in the morning. And remember, be kind to people, love your family, and Jesus loves you, and so do I. Bye, guys.